I always say I love entertaining on the river because I don't have to clean my house. I have an 8-foot by 20-foot spot I can hose off, and then we're ready to entertain again.
From the blog Random Sweets, I'm Stacy Mergenthal, and this is Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens, a show for people who embrace the warm and cozy spirit of everyday living in the northern Midwest, like today's guest, Betsy Ziegler in Mandan, North Dakota. Betsy was born and raised in Minnesota, and then she headed to the Black Hills in South Dakota for college, and eventually made her way back to her home state to work in Minneapolis. And it turns out she is my sister from another mother. She's my sister-in-law. Betsy, her husband Russell, and their 2 kids, Grace and Russell Jr., now live in Mandan, North Dakota, where they've just thawed themselves from 101.2 inches of winter snow. Actually, it's just 4/10 away from breaking their season snowfall record of 101.6 inches, which sounds more like a radio station than a snow total. Betsy's a kind, selfless soul who inherently creates a warm and inviting atmosphere wherever she goes or whatever she does. She's one of those people who are up for anything, like dressing in costume for a party or a family get-together, just randomly driving 12 hours round trip to surprise us at a high school graduation. And she's a master at bartering, improvising, and fabricating with any means possible to make things happen for her kids, her family, and her friends. She has a big heart, but what I also love about Betsy is that she has a backbone, and she is steadfast in standing up for what she believes in, even and especially when those around her are not in agreement. In this episode, we talk about German dessert, Kuchen, cruising the Missouri River and drinking blood red cocktail pouches, Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park, and the beloved maple bacon long johns at Bearscat. Betsy also shares her recipes, most of them using the eyeball method, for a non-mayo-based German potato salad, bacon and cheddar ranch dip, chicken and wild rice soup that she makes using a box of Uncle Ben's wild rice and seasoning packet, Mexican corn, pickle dip, and smoked pulled pork and sauerkraut with fried Knoephla, along with her secret to lightening up the krautiness of the sauerkraut. Now, while you're listening, take a look at the photos, recipes, and the links from this episode on randomsweets.com. And before we get started, please subscribe if you're new here and give this episode a 5-star rating or review, which you can find in most podcast apps on the Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens show page, not on the episode screen, but on the show page. All right, so let's talk Midwestern comfort food with my North Dakota BFF and sister-in-law, Betsy Ziegler. Well, we're here with Betsy Ziegler today in the house. In the motel. Hotel. we got it all set up here in North Dakota today.
Yes, we're in Mandan.
Fun. True Midwesterner. You grew up totally in Minnesota, right?
Yes.
I mean, you guys moved a little bit to Florida for a short time.
I think I was in my mother's womb at that time.
Okay. So you grew up in Minnesota.
Yes.
And so your mom, Marie, is the one who did a podcast episode a couple episodes ago talking about growing up in Millbank on the farm. So she grew up in South Dakota and then ended up in Minnesota, had you 4 kids. And then you went to school in the Black Hills?
Yeah, Black Hills State University.
So you spent time West River.
We
call it West River.
We do call it West River.
Those of us on the east side call it West River. But you do too when you're over there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's weird that North Dakota doesn't have East River, West River divide like there is in South Dakota.
Right, because you have the river.
We do have it, yeah. Right?
It's there.
Like it's the same river.
And then you moved to Sioux Falls. So you were out in the Black Hills. Then you moved to Sioux Falls for a short time.
Yeah, I was kind of a nomad. I like to say I've been on an upper Midwest tour. It's time to go someplace warmer. Next to move.
So instead you moved north to North Dakota.
Yes.
Right.
And my dad is from North Dakota, so growing up, my parents both had that, North Dakota, South Dakota rivalry.
Mm-hmm. So you and Russell got married in Belfouche, and now you live in North Dakota.
Yes.
So Kuchen, I want to talk about that today because I think the first time I ever had it was at your wedding. What year was that?
2010.
And am I saying it right?
You are.
Kuchen?
A lot of people want to pronounce it Kuchen or Kuchen, but I've always heard it pronounced Kuchen, even though it does have a CH in the middle of it.
Because that's how it's spelled. So it is the state dessert of South Dakota.
Okay.
The first time I ever had it was at your wedding in Belfouche. And who did you say Russell's?
So Russell's aunt, Henrietta, made all the Kuchen for our wedding. Like, we literally collected rhubarb and had that chopped up and frozen, ready for her to make rhubarb Kuchen and peach Kuchen for our wedding. And we had that in place of cake. It's a very much German from Russia heritage, and that's where Russell's heritage comes from, both on his mom and dad's side. And his aunt has been part of the North Dakota documentaries and things like that, preserving the heritage of the Germans from Russia. So it was a real honor to have her make all of that Kuchen for our wedding, and it was delicious. And it was I had never heard of Kuchen before dating Russell, and so it's something I've grown to love and our family loves. And
for people who don't know what it is, tell people what Kuchen is.
It would be like a sweet bread with a custard type filling, and then with fruit on top of it. There's different kinds of Kuchen. Some is like a thin Kuchen, which is called a wedding Kuchen, with a thin custard. And then there's the thicker bread that is probably about 1.5 inches deep total. And so some people like the thin, some people like the thick. And
and all kinds of filling, right? I think date filling one of the first kind of, what I kind of read about, it's like date
prunes,
filling. Or prune, there you go.
Yeah,
okay.
Prunes. A lot of people like prunes. I was a little hesitant to try that at first.
Don't eat too many at one time anyway, right?
So, and then cottage cheese is a big one. That's my son's favorite is cottage cheese, and I think Grace's as well.
But it's still sweet, right?
It is. Yeah. It is.
Okay.
And then I personally like rhubarb.
Do you guys go out and get it from a certain place? Or
our backyard neighbor has a big rhubarb plant that he has given us some rhubarb in the past, or family members. I remember for our wedding, because we needed so much of it, I was driving down the road and I saw a random farmhouse with a bunch of rhubarb in their yard, and knocked on the door, and they said, for $5, have as much as you want.
Oh, so that's totally Midwest.
It is so
Midwest, and it's so Midwest that you stop to ask them permission for it, right?
Yes.
I mean, a lot of places people would just hop out of their car and go out and get it. They do that with asparagus. Do you guys have that around here in North Dakota?
I have not seen any, but we love asparagus. That would be awesome if I did find some asparagus.
So in southwest Minnesota where we live, what I've learned is there's certain places that it grows, and when people find it, whether it's their property or not, they just spot it and they go out and they'll pick the asparagus every single year from the ditch or wherever they see it growing, because it will grow wild. And then everybody keeps their spot secret. And they'll do it whether it's their property or not. So somebody might go out and go, I came out here to pick my asparagus and it's all gone. Yep. That's what they'll do down there.
That's shady.
It's shady. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Like, I love, you have so many interesting, you're a free spirit, which I totally love. I mean, you've traveled around and you do all these really cool things. You're a homeschool mom, but just tell people a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you. You make me sound way more interesting than I am.
No, you are, Betsy.
But I homeschool. I have 2 kids. One is 20, Grace, and she's a free spirit. And then I also homeschool my son, Russell Jr. I call him RJ, but he prefers Russell Jr. And we are on our 5th year of homeschooling, and he is a 7th grader.
Is he 13, right?
13,
yeah,
just turned 13, yes.
Okay, because for a short time you had 2 teenagers until Grace turned 20.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
For 6 whole weeks, I had 2 teenagers. Couldn't handle it.
You did, just fine.
So, and homeschooling is pretty much my life, but my son loves learning, and that's great. We love a lot of history and science, and we live in a great area where there is so much to do as far as homeschooling, and so that keeps us really busy and active. And I should mention my husband, too.
Oh, wait, there is Russell.
There's Russell Sr.
I was going to say there's Russell Jr., but you're right. There is a Russell Sr.
I love my husband.
And Russell listens to all these podcasts, so it's really good that we get him mentioned here.
Yes, and he is a great man, and he is a great father, and he works a lot of shift work and does works up in a coal mining operation, and so he does a lot of hard work and a lot of hard nights, working the overnights and things like that. So being able to homeschool provides us with a lot of freedom to see the kids more when you work those crazy schedules. So that's been a blessing too.
Right. One thing that I really love is when you guys do take your trips and do your things, you're always being able to incorporate education into it, fun education, and Russell Jr. digs it.
He does.
You make it fun, and
thank you.
When you take a little skiing trip or go out to the mountains or go four-wheeling, you're always finding a place or a way for him to learn because you're passionate about it too. So when we came up here, remind me what the place was, that fort that you took us to that was so cool.
We went to Fort Lincoln State Park.
So I guess I should mention we're in the Bismarck-Mandan area because I think I just said North Dakota, but...
Yes.
Yeah, so tell us about that because that was really neat.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. It's one of our state parks. It has the home of Custer. This is where Custer was stationed before he went out to the Battle of Little Bighorn. And so there's that. There's a replica house there that you can tour, and barracks and things of all that nature. So it has that U.S. history aspect of it, but it also has a museum. It has the earthen lodges of the Mandan Hidatsa.
That was really neat.
That are just epic. Like, you could not imagine just this little, it looks like just a little lump of dirt from a distance, but then you walk in and it's these huge rooms, which very versatile in what the Native Americans did there.
And they would burn fires in there too, right? Do I remember?
Yes.
You would walk in and go, oh my gosh, this place is huge in here, and they have little fires.
Yes. Yes, there was a lot, and I wish I could articulate how many people they could have in there, and I believe that they could bring their horses in there in the winter, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot to do at that state park. There's also what are called the blockhouses, which are the lookout towers that overlook the prairie and overlook the rivers, and you can actually climb up onto the roofs and just have a beautiful panoramic scenery. And we love North Dakota now, so just the beautiful diversity in the water and all of that. So we love entertaining and taking people out to places and showing everybody the places we love.
So we're going to talk about the river in just a minute because you introduced us to that lifestyle a couple years ago, and we love it. But to just kind of finish off talking a little bit about yourself, you went to college in Spearfish?
Yep, I did my undergraduate work at Black Hills State University, and then I did some master's work at the University of South Dakota. Okay.
And you're very much in the journalism, communication. You've worked in nonprofit.
Yes.
Right?
I did a lot of PR and marketing in the nonprofit.
Right. Betsy could have her own podcast. I think she should have her own, like, homeschooling, awesome mom podcast. I think that would be really fun. I have a friend in St. Louis, Jen Miller. She's the one who did the very first podcast with me. And she's a homeschool mom. Grew up in Rapid City, moved to Sioux Falls, and then eventually they moved to St. Louis a couple years ago. And she has 5 kids because she has a set of twins.
Oh, that's amazing.
And she homeschools, and they're they're so far ahead in their learning. And, when you look at a sophomore in high school in the public school and then look at the kids in homeschool, those kids are far beyond. I love it.
I think that one of the beauties of homeschooling is that each kid gets to move at their own pace. They're not standardized. Mm-hmm. And I think it provides an environment where kids get to be kids, and it's okay to love learning, and it's okay to be yourself. And I feel that kids today have so much pressure to be mature so quickly, and there's so many societal factors that are just constantly pushing them forward and to mature too quickly. And so I think just allowing kids to, I know there's that shirt that says keep homeschool weird, and I'm like, I love it. Yes. I think we're all weird, and we just belong to a society that says, nope, you can't be weird. So people hide their weirdness, and maybe homeschoolers don't hide their weirdness.
And it's not weirdness, it's uniqueness, which we all have. And you're right. You get into the public school or a big school setting now, and if you're just not like everybody else, it's hard to, well, even as adults, for a little bit unique, it's sometimes hard to let that show among a group of people because we're afraid people will think we're weird.
Absolutely.
And by me, I certainly don't mean me, right?
I'm weird. I admit it.
I'm a nerd. Let's talk about the river. This is so cool. So you and Russell Sr. have a pontoon, and you've asked Jason and I to come up, and we're like, okay, let's go to the river. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, you get on a pontoon and you just drive it up and down the river. It's so different than that, and it's so fun. And I just want you to talk about what it's like to be out on the river and why it's not just driving up and down the river.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say I love entertaining on the river because I don't have to clean my house. I have an 8-foot by 20-foot spot I can hose off, and then we're ready to entertain again. And so it's just so great. We have a philosophy that home projects are for the spring and the fall because there's so little time for summer, especially in North Dakota. So
I mean, you guys still have, we drove up, what is today? The end of April. Tomorrow's May 1st when we're recording this. We drove up yesterday, and there's still snow in the ditches and things like that. So summer, talk about, short summer and being able to be on the lake. I get it.
If my husband's off work and it's a nice day, we are on the water. But there's so much variety because it's like its own little town, its own little world, and it has its own vibe. Where we're at, there's a lot of sandbars. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you'll have 200 boats pulled up to a sandbar, and everybody has their boat games, their, cornhole and ladder ball and spike ball.
That was the first time I ever played spike ball. It was like 100 degrees out, and we're playing spike ball in the middle of the river on a sandbar. And the dog was with. Luna's running around.
Very dog friendly.
Music is cranked up.
You have your music. There have been bands that come out and perform on the sandbars. But there's, music, there's food, there's several restaurants. So there's 2 different main areas. There's the main channel where it has the sandbars, and people, dock their boats and then play yard games and mingle and listen to music. And then there's the bays, and there's several man-made bays that are built off the river, and those have a lot of homes, restaurants. There's 5 different bars and restaurants on the river, so you can go bar hopping if you want to do that. The bays tend to be warmer than the main channel, and there's no currents, so a lot of times may get a little hot on the sandbar. Let's go into the bay and go for a swim for a bit, or let's cruise the river. And, there's just a lot of variety. So you do this for a bit, you do that for a bit, you play your music, maybe you see some friends of yours, and then you tie your boats together up in the bay and mingle with them. And so it's definitely a culture and a lifestyle that we have grown to love. We're very thankful. We had a friend of Russell's from work who brought us out on his boat one day, and introduced us to this lifestyle because really, if you're traveling back and forth from Bismarck to Mandan across the bridges, you don't see it. It's all kind of south. And so once you're introduced, you're hooked. It's like, we need to get a boat.
Right.
And we did.
Right. And the river changes. So you have talked about how you have to get out first in the spring or when you can get out and kind of test and see what the water is like, because where the sandbars are sometimes change a little bit.
Yes.
I mean, the big ones maybe are kind of in the same area, but it's not always the same every year.
No, it isn't. And water levels change. So some years, I mean, the sandbars are moving and it's just constantly changing. There's been, sandbars that are 4 football fields in length, and then the next year they're gone. So we kind of have to navigate the channel, and sometimes, with the rising and lowering of the waters on the river, you may have a whole tree floating down the river or something just stuck under the surface. So, but it's a community
or
where
Tupperware lids.
What?
Tupperware lids, Rubbermaid container lids might be floating down the river.
So we pack a lot of food to go out on the river, and sometimes you're traveling along and the wind blows and you lose Tupperware lids. Actually, you lose a lot of Tupperware lids on the river.
Well, and that did happen. That's why we're laughing about it, because when Jason and I were out with you the first time, I think it was great. We were out there all day. Drinks were flowing.
They were flowing.
Jason was. And he was eating some sort of snacks out of a Rubbermaid container, and he lost the lid. It just, blew away, but I don't think he told you, until later. I mean, half an hour later. So the lid blew away, and we kind of drove around a little bit trying to find it, and we never did. And then a weekend later, it happened with one of Russell Jr.'s friends or something, too.
Yes. And another very nonchalant kid. Oh, by the way, huh? Yeah,
the lid just blew away.
So it's a danger of being on the river.
Well, speaking of the bars, see, that's what I thought was so neat is that, you drive into all these bays and you can look at all these cool houses or park the pontoon and go in and have some drinks there. Or it's the first time I've ever had an adult, a juice pouch, but it was a cocktail pouch.
Oh, yes, Paddle Trap. They make the best margaritas and daiquiris, and it literally, they put it in a bag, and it's almost like a pouch for blood donation or something. And so then you have this bright red strawberry daiquiri, and it looks like you're drinking blood out of a pouch. But they're delicious.
They were really good, because then you can take those to go and take them out on the boat or the pontoon with you. And
a nice cool drink. And
so you do. I want to talk about some of the foods that you made that weekend. I can't remember if you had them on the boat, or some of them were when we got back to your house. But we still joke today about you had all this food, you did all this work, and we knew it on the pontoon. And we go into one of those bars. You might remember which one. I don't know what it was. And Jason's starving, and he talks to the bartender. He's like, "Do you have food here? I mean, do you have hot dogs or something?"
"Do you have a hot dog?" I looked at him like, "What the heck, Jason? I just told you I made so much food."
There's all this food on there, so.
And he hadn't seen it yet, but I think then when I convinced him, no, there's good food there, then then we converted him on the food we had on the boat.
Well, yeah, you did, because that's when he lost your lid. And at some point he was driving the pontoon and he almost got it stuck. Remember that? And then Russell Sr. had to take the wheel again and get us out of that spot that was really shallow. And I was worried for us. But
good times on the river.
Good times on the river.
It's always a story. We have had 17 people on our boat.
At one time. Safely.
Game and Fish did not care for it so much.
A couple of you are going to have to come onto our boat.
Pretty much, yep.
Yeah. And I do remember that now, that we went into the little bay, and I don't know what you call it. Did you drop anchor? And then we all jumped off. Even the dog, Luna, came in the water and swam with us, and it was so warm.
Yes.
It was
Luna
really fun.
Is quite the show-off dog on the river. So she's a very smart dog.
And she's so sweet.
And she is. And so she sits on the front and kind of keeps her eye on everybody, making sure they don't get too far away. But she also likes to play fetch because she's done dock dogs before and things like that. But she taught herself to climb up the ladder to get back on the boat.
Are you serious?
So all the other boats just get a kick out of watching Luna climb up the ladder and then play fetch. So
They're looking at their dogs going, why don't you learn how to do that?
right, she is, yeah.
All right, so that day, there's a couple things from that weekend, a couple food items that Jason and I went home and recreated. I mean, we made them because they're so good and so easy. You're like, yeah, it's just this, this, and this. Okay, but we'd never had it before and made it, and it was delicious. One of the things was the ranch dip.
Yes.
So tell us what that was, or is, because you made it again this weekend, and
yes,
we're all scooping it up with our carrots.
It's so easy and so delicious. It's a bacon cheddar ranch dip, and essentially it's sour cream with pre-made bacon bits in it, like the Oscar Mayer bacon bits, some pre-shredded cheddar cheese, and then Hidden Valley Ranch seasoning packet. And I wish I could take credit for inventing this. I got this recipe from my sisters-in-law. And I know sometimes they like a thicker texture. So instead of just using sour cream, they'll use a cream cheese instead of the sour cream.
Oh, instead of the sour cream altogether?
Yes.
Okay. Then it's a little bit more of a spread than a
Yep.
dip. Okay. So bacon, I didn't even know that it was the, like, bacon bits.
Yeah.
I actually, when we went home, I made real bacon. So I could have made it even easier.
So easy. Yep.
Okay. So dry ranch seasoning packet and sour cream, probably what's on the packet or whatever, what it says. But then you're adding shredded cheddar and bacon.
Yep.
Okay. So that one is really good. We went home and redid that. And the funniest one was the corn. I'm like, okay, Betsy, please give me your recipe for that Mexican corn. And you're like, it's just this and this. Okay. So, of course, we ate all this food after a hot day on the river, and we'd had drinks. We were hungry, and everything was so good. So tell me about the Mexican. Oh, I know why you're laughing. Oh my gosh, Jason at the table.
Okay.
Okay, tell us about the Mexican corn.
So Jason really enjoyed this food. He was everything he said.
And his eyes were like pretty much closed, and he was, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things when we get off the river, it's been a long day. You know, you don't realize how much the heat takes out of you until you get back to your house or whatever. So I like to have food pre-planned and ready to go because otherwise we're picking up fast food or
Exactly.
I'm not in the mood to cook. So my husband, he smoked some pulled pork, and then we had some pulled pork tacos. But then I put some corn with it, and I just call it Mexican corn. But literally, it's just canned corn, butter, and taco seasoning. And it just gives it a little extra punch and goes well with tacos.
So delicious. I know you're playing it down. You're like, it's just this and this. But we were all like thinking it was some big recipe, and that's all it was.
No, taco seasoning.
Yep.
Taco seasoning's great. Mm-hmm. We put it in our sour cream to give it a little kick too. Mm-hmm. So
Russell did smoked pork, and I think we also had some really good smoked chicken. Did we have kebabs that weekend with some peppers?
Oh, that is the Bobby Flay kebab marinade recipe. I'll have to give that to you to share.
Or, I don't know, Russell's, I think, maybe going to do an episode. I don't know if he'll share, but somebody will share those.
That actually, I use a recipe. That's, I think, the only recipe I actually
have
use.
A recipe. Well, the funeral potatoes or the cheesy hash browns one, too. When I did that episode, you texted me, and it's like, this, I eyeball it. And it was so simple. But that's the whole point.
That's how I roll.
I like those kinds when you're... So when I made...
See, you're a wonderful baker, and baking requires precision and everything like that. And I don't bake.
It does, which is odd for me because I typically don't like that. I'm more the creative, just wing it, toss something. Maybe that's why I love so much of these things that you do, because it's not the precision, things like that. But the baking that I do is very simple, and a lot of it starts with a cake mix box, or it's nothing difficult. And
don't downplay all of your cheesecakes. Come on, Stacy.
Cheesecakes are so much easier than what people think. They're easy, but it's time consuming. That's the problem. They just take a lot of time between letting things come to room temperature, and then after it bakes, you have to let it sit out to come back to room temperature out of the oven before you can put it in the refrigerator. So by the time you're done, you've spent like 8 hours.
See, that's all way too complex.
But the part that you put in the kitchen, the time that you put in the kitchen might have only been like 30 minutes.
Okay.
So that's why I downplay it. But anyway. All right, so those are the recipes that I remember, but I don't know if you have a list of things you wanted to talk.
I was just going to talk about the pickle dip real quick, too.
Oh, yeah.
So we all love, like, the ham with the cream cheese and the pickles all wrapped up. But those, again, are too time-consuming for me. So I just take the cream cheese and then put all the pickles in the food processor and dice them real quick.
Oh.
And then I have the cream cheese and the pickles mixed together, and then I just use it as a dip for the summer sausage and the ham and everything like that.
Okay.
So then you're not, wrapping and smearing the cream cheese and everything like that. But
so the pickles and the cream cheese are the only thing together. You're not putting ham in there.
No.
Okay.
I just have like a tray of meats to go with it. Meats and cheeses. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Heidi calls that South Dakota sushi.
Yes.
And I'm like, why do you call it South Dakota sushi? You're from Minnesota. I mean, we grew up in South Dakota, but she's been in Minnesota since she was 20. So I don't know why. She's like, I don't know. I've just always called it South Dakota sushi.
And there's so many names for it. I don't even know what to call it. I know, I see that. That's yummy.
Right? It doesn't matter what it's called.
Like,
we're going
I've heard
to eat
people
it.
call it, I think, pigs in a blanket, which doesn't even make sense. Or but it's delicious.
What about the soup last night? Because that was really good too. And you were talking about it's just this, this, and this. Again.
Yeah. So I made chicken wild rice soup last night.
A wonderful soup.
So my son doesn't eat a lot of gluten, so so this is nice for that. So basically, I just cook chicken breasts in the crock pot, and then I use a hand mixer to shred it, and then that absorbs all the juices, and it shreds really easy. It takes about 2 minutes to shred all the chicken breasts. And then a lot of times I'll freeze that and save that, so I have protein on hand, already cooked. But so I took out a package of my frozen shredded chicken, and I just took a couple boxes. So I made a big batch because there was a lot of family coming. But normally it's a box of chicken broth and then some chicken and then a box of Uncle Ben's wild rice. And then with the seasoning packet in there, that adds so much flavoring to the soup. So I'll just use that as the seasoning. Sometimes I may add a little bit more garlic powder or pepper, depending on how much flavor the chicken broth absorbed. And then I'll just add heavy whipping cream and carrots.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I loved the cooked carrots in there, too.
Yes.
Yep. It was really good. So I want to know how to make that because I'll make that at home. I like it. Did you end up can you freeze it? Because we're like, I don't know if you can freeze the cream. So leftover.
We didn't end up freezing it because we have people staying through the week.
Yeah.
I figured it's one less meal I have to cook. And
Definitely.
actually more got eaten than I expected. It was just a small Tupperware container full, so.
Okay. I want to talk about a couple of bakeries, but first I want to ask you about the meal that you're making tonight because we're talking about the Germans from Russia, and we have some sauerkraut tonight, which I'm crinkling my nose at.
Okay.
I'm Norwegian, so this is, but this is a big deal because your Russell Senior's family is
all German from Russia.
So talk about what you're making tonight because it's pretty exciting.
We're going to do, so instead of doing a traditional kraut and Knoephla where they cut up kielbasas and put it with it, I'm going to take Russell's smoked pork and pulled pork, and then I'm going to add some kraut to that. And I tried making kraut one time, never again. It's just store-bought kraut, Frank's. And then a lady down the street made some homemade Knoephla, which is like a very dense dumpling, very small, dense dumpling. And so then I'm going to fry up the Knoephla and then add the pulled pork and kraut, and it's kind of a traditional German meal take on that. And then I will make some German potato salad. which it's not a mustard or mayonnaise based potato salad.
Okay.
It's a cooked potato with onions, like a chive type green onion, and a dressing of sugar, vegetable oil, and apple cider vinegar.
Okay.
And it has just a tangy taste to it. And then
Is
we'll
it-
have, of course, some Kuchen.
Is it served cold or hot, that potato salad? It's a cold salad?
Cold, yes.
Okay. And would that be gluten-free then?
Yes,
So that one is good. And then the Knoephla, would that be gluten-free?
definitely not.
No, because it's a dough.
Yes.
Okay. But you're going to fry those?
Yes.
So even though I'm crinkling my nose at sauerkraut, I am going to try it. So by the time we're done recording this podcast, you'll go make the food, and then later I'll be able to say, that was awesome.
So, and I think, so what I've learned about sauerkraut is, well, it depends on how strong of a taste you want. I like a mild sauerkraut taste.
Okay.
So actually, once you take it out of the can, you can wash it
Oh.
and take away some of that vinegar juice, and that really helps.
Okay.
And then what I will do is add it to the meat so the kraut absorbs those meat juices as well.
Okay. Because it's just cabbage, right?
It
All
is.
right.
It's pickled cabbage.
So I don't know why I'm freaking out, because I love coleslaw.
Yeah.
And that, a lot of times you can have the vinegar. Anyway, so I don't know what my problem is, but I'm going to try it because it does sound really good. So
there's an old lore. When the Germans from Russia came here, they had heard that the land was so fertile and there were no rocks in the land. So they had their special kraut making rocks to like crush the cabbage and stuff. So they said that they brought over their kraut rocks from Russia.
do you have a kraut rock?
I do not have a kraut rock.
We'll have to find you a kraut rock.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a couple bakeries. So if you're in the Bismarck-Mandan area, I haven't taken really a lot of time to just say, okay, we're here, but I'm going to go off and explore like I do when I go to towns and things.
Right.
And so I have not been to...
We always have a packed agenda.
We do, which is because you're a great host and you love to entertain and show off, like you said, your city and your area. And we've seen all these neat things because of you. And is it called Bearscat?
Bearscat, yes.
A lot of times on our last morning here, you guys will have gone and made a trip and go get these donuts. And it's funny because when I was getting my hair cut the other day in Brookings, South Dakota, Amber said to me, oh, you're going to Bismarck. Have you ever been to Bearscat? And I said, oh my gosh, no, I haven't been there, but I've had the donuts many times because Betsy and Russell will get them for us. So tell us about Bearscat if people need to go there when they come to this area.
Absolutely need to go to Bearscat. In fact, since we've moved up here, they've opened 2 more locations. So there's one in Mandan and 2 in Bismarck. And then I believe they actually have a random one in Oregon or Washington.
Okay.
So I know that there's a couple other locations. I'm not exactly sure, but their maple bacon Long John is my absolute favorite, and it's kind of become a tradition in our house that, you know, your birthday morning you get Bearscat donuts, and so someone goes down at 5:50 in the morning waiting for Bearscat to open, and I think we brought the donuts one morning here to the hotel at 6 in the morning before Ryan flew off.
Yep, you have.
So, yeah, we love our donuts from Bearscat.
Are they kind of is it an old-fashioned bakery that's been there for tons of years, or is it something newer? Like,
I would say it's newer. I don't know the origins of Bearscat.
okay. Well, I can tell you.
I do know some origins of Bearscat.
You're a homeschool teacher. You do know the Bearscat origin.
So, and they actually do have a Bearscat donut that is resemblance of nature.
Okay.
So, but they have the wide variety, the cereal donuts, the Girl Scout flavored donuts, the Samoan is delicious, and just a huge variety, and it's just plain and simple donuts.
Cool. I know Amber said they were here for Easter, and they had all the fun kind of Easter colors and fun things, decorations and candies on the donuts. But the bacon maple is what she talked about, because she said in general she doesn't really like bacon. But on those donuts, she loved it.
Yes.
So that's what she talked about too. All right, so you guys were in, where were you just at? You sent me a postcard and you said this bakery we're sitting at right now is called, and so I want you to tell me about it because I haven't had a chance to talk to you about what that is.
We just got back from Red Lodge, Montana, and we were out there for their final weekend of skiing, and we went to, it was our first day there, we went to what's called Cat's Tail Bakery, and it's in a historic building, great atmosphere. And the two things that we had, well, they had three things, but Russell got a brownie right away. And we were traveling, so he was not eating gluten-free.
Oh, Russell Jr.
Russell Jr.
Okay.
And it was the most unique brownie I've ever had because it had a shortbread crust, but it was very dense, where it was almost like the texture between a cheesecake and a brownie.
Okay.
And it just cut through, and it was so smooth, and it wasn't too sweet, but it wasn't bitter. It was not what I was expecting when I looked at it, and we all love that. We all kind of, pass the plates around as we're trying stuff. And then we also got their butter horns, which was delicious.
What are butter horns?
It's a pastry, like a croissant almost. Like, it reminded me a lot of a cheese Danish, but I think like it was a sweeter custard with fruit filling.
Okay.
And it was round.
Are the butter, they kind of rolled? Do they kind of roll? They're rolled up and then the cream is in the center? Or no, I'm thinking of something different maybe. And then there's a lot of times a little powdered sugar over the top. That's not what it is?
No, it was just like a big circle with a bunch of cream cheese.
Oh, okay.
Or not, I don't know if it's cream cheese, whatever their cream was, with a bunch of fruit baked in, and they had different fruit flavored butter horns.
Okay.
And that was kind of what they were known for. And then Russell had made some pork to go out on the trip. And so we had some of their potato rolls.
Okay.
Which were amazing with that pulled pork.
Fresh breads then.
So we had to make a stop before we left town to take some home. And brought some of that back to Grace, who was back home watching Luna.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She wasn't with you on that trip.
No.
When you guys, you go to the Bighorns?
Yes, we do a lot of four-wheeling in the Bighorns above Sheridan, Wyoming. That's an annual trip, and we pack for about 4 days up in the mountains and tent it and kind of set up a base operations and off the grid. And
I didn't realize you guys were tenting.
It depends on the years, but most years we've tented. We've had snow in August up there. And
in August? We've
had some horrific rains that we've four-wheeled in, and RJ's jumped in the lake in freezing rains and hail. And so we've had it's been an annual adventure up there. Grace actually has the mountains and the latitude and longitude of where we camp tattooed on her, because it's just been
very
like
special.
An integral childhood memory. Yeah.
What kind of snacks or what kind of food do you bring up there? If you're tenting, you're cooking over a fire?
No, people bring up grills, and some other people in the family have campers.
Okay.
So usually a propane grill or...
Okay, so you're doing your meats and things just like a summer.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a lot of packing. We look like Sanford and Son heading out of town with our pickup packed up and our trailer packed up, and so
when you go back to Minneapolis, so you've also lived and worked in Minneapolis too in your life before you had children, right? Or actually after you had Grace?
After I had Grace, yes. I used to work downtown off of Nicollet.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any favorite food places that you love to go when you go back there, or that you take the kids to, or...
I used to work in the building that Murray's Steakhouse was in, and so it was just one of my favorite smells. It smelled so good.
Because you sometimes go back there now for different things into the cities. I was just wondering if there's like when Kalani and I go, we have to go to Cosetta and St. Paul for Italian. So if we only have one meal, we have to go there. I just wondered if there's a place like that for you.
I know Leanne Chin. I took Grace to Leanne Chin the other time we were there.
Okay.
Because finding good Chinese is kind of hard. And it was just fast food Chinese, but it was something that I used to eat a lot when I lived there. So
okay,
that was my first time introducing Grace to that. But yeah, I don't know.
I know we already looked on our way up here to see if there's a Raising Cane's in Fargo or Bismarck, and they haven't made it to North Dakota yet. They haven't made it to South Dakota either. But there's a ton up in the cities now. There's
lots of things that haven't made it to North Dakota yet.
That's true. But
we're still hoping for a Hy-Vee someday.
Hey, you got a Costco last year, though, didn't you?
We did. I think it's been here 2 years now. Yep.
Okay. I haven't been there yet, so that was one thing I wanted to go and check out your Costco. Well, everyone has different treats.
Okay.
And so I like to see what they have for their treats, for their snacks, and things like that. So
I like to get winter mittens there.
Winter mittens?
Winter mittens. Okay. We go through a lot of gloves at our house.
Cool. So. Well, yeah. So I know you have to get going because everybody's waiting for you to make a great supper tonight, and I'm excited to try that. And I'll report back whether it's something I want to remake at home.
Well, if you don't like it, there will still be Kuchen.
Oh, and you have so much food there right now. All the snacks and the cheeses and meats. I love food like that. I can just sit and eat a plate full of that for a meal.
Same.
I mean, I'll do that at lunchtime when Jason's gone. Give me meat, cheese, crackers, some salami, and I'm good. Maybe some almonds or something in there.
Yeah, it's funny because we have this food at our house all the time, but it isn't unless it's like prepped and set out to the kids and people eat it in our house. So
isn't that the truth, though? We should always treat it like we're having a party just with ourselves. Wash the fruits and... Well, Russell Jr., he had the strawberries practically finished off last night. You had them all sitting out, ready to go.
Yeah, and you'd think that same container of strawberries was in the fridge all week. Right. You just have to pluck the stems off, and it's a miracle.
Right. All right. Well, do you want to share anything else? I'll share the recipes that we talked about today, kind of online, but like you said, you don't really have them written down. I have some fun pictures that I can share. Even from when we were on the river that time, and then we were on the sandbar, and I have some fun pictures, so I'd just share some of those on the blog post too with the recipes that you shared today.
Wonderful.
And I'll take a picture of the pork tonight. That'll be fun. I'll take a picture of that, and then I can post that too. But you're not making Kuchen yourself, and I'm not making it, so I can't share a recipe for that.
No, I don't bake. I just buy. The Kuchen I'm serving is Grandma's Kuchen out of Ashley, North Dakota.
Okay. So do you order it, or where's Ashley? I don't know where that is.
Ashley is south of here, kind of in the German from Russia settlement areas, and it's at local grocers here in town.
Okay. So that's kind of like, again, in South Dakota, Pete's, or I don't know how to pronounce it, Pietz or something like that, Kuchen Kitchen.
Okay.
And they make that and sell it in the grocery stores and all over, like Lewis Drug Stores, Hy-Vees, things like that in South Dakota too. Betsy, thank you. I hope that we'll do another episode together because you have lots of cool stories and foods and everything to share. But I do have to let you go because you have to go make food I
have to go cook.
All the family you have coming in. And Russell Jr. is being confirmed tomorrow, which is super special in our family. And
yes,
that's why we have this get together. And
yes, it's awesome. We have so many family in town. We love it.
Mm-hmm. So thank you.
And thank you for coming up here.
All right. Thanks, Betsy.
All right.
Out. Be out. Obviously, we have a lot of fun together. It's really impossible not to when you're around Betsy. Remember, you'll find the recipes, photos, and links from this episode on randomsweets.com. In the next episode, Betsy's husband Russell and I are talking about how he smokes meats and cheeses. And I realized I forgot to ask Betsy to share the cilantro lime slaw she made for those smoked pulled pork tacos that we talked about. Although I forgot, the slaw is unforgettable, and it's become an essential side or topping for our smoked meats at home. So be sure to tune in next week for all things smoked. Thanks for hanging out with Betsy and me today. I'd really like to hear from you if you try any of these recipes, or if you have an episode idea or guest ideas. My email is stacy@randomsweets.com, And remember, that's STACI at randomsweets.com. Well, I hope you're subscribed to Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens and that you set yourself up to receive a notification when a new episode is available. On most apps, when you subscribe, that doesn't mean that you're going to get a notification when a new one comes out. So it doesn't happen automatically. If you're not sure how, just Google how to turn on notifications in the app, like Apple or Spotify, on the mobile device that you use, like an iPhone or Android. And it'll tell you how to either just click the bell or whatever it is in your app. So be sure to download new episodes to your phone or tablet so you can listen to them while you're cruising the rivers and lakes this summer, hopefully with blood red cocktail pouches in hand. Sweet wishes!